Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and we are finally at what I consider the first week of the OP12 power rankings provided by TCG Matchmaking, and I'm really excited to jump into this. This meta has been kind of pretty open since we kind of lost the best deck in the format, not completely from the format, but just not as strong as it was in Japan and stuff. So because of that, I think there's a lot of decks that are kind of vying for that first spot. There's a lot of different decks that are viable right now, and even though we have a top 10, I think there's probably going to be more than 10 decks that are easily viable in this meta as well. So if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content for the One Piece card game. I don't want you guys to miss it. And if you want any of the deck lists that we're going over today, you can find them in my on my website, linked in the description, Eggman Events. Make sure to check it out there. So real quick, so we're going to look at the power ranking. So if you guys don't know how this works, it's a rating kind of based on a function not only by their win rate, but also by how many people are on these decks. Just kind of makes it a little bit evener. So even if there's a deck that wasn't really popular and there's just someone playing a lot of it, it doesn't mean it's going to automatically have a high rating. But at the same point, if you're a more popular deck as well, means that there's a lot of people on the deck, which means that there are a lot of people learning the deck, which means that there's kind of a lot of wiggle room. So for it, though, we do have Zoro in the first spot, Silvers, Bonnie, Blue Purple Luffy, and Green Purple Luffy to wrap up the top 5. And then the bottom 5 are Shanks, Blue Kuzan, the Marshall D Teach Leader, the Blue and Yellow Nami, and Kalgara as well. So again, as kind of mentioned, I think that the top 5 for this is probably pretty standard, I think, for this format around here. So I would expect that of these 5 leaders, they're probably going to be about 50% of any meta game for this event right now. These are the decks I've seen a lot of people spend time, a lot of people play with, and I think that, again, is going to be what it's going to look like for this format. So, and then the bottom 5, I think you're going to kind of rotate quite a bit through there. I think a lot of people have been talking about Shanks recently. I think because Blue Purple Luffy is not as present as it used to be, means that Shanks does have a better time. That was one of its worst matchups, so that kind of affects it. Blue Kuzan's kind of in a weird spot. Then we also teach Nami. I think this deck is going to be really good. You did lose 2 of its worst matchups. At least you lost Blue Nami, which was a bad matchup for it, and then Blue Purple could just kind of go infinite against it when, Blue Yellow Nami also is kind of a deck about kind of card advantage and stuff. So I think that deck's going to get better over the next couple weeks, especially with Star Deck 22, which is releasing next week, which will then affect the power rankings from there too. And then Kalgara is our 10th place. I expect it to again rotate around a little bit, but there it is. And then some quick matchups. If you guys want more of this, you can find more of this data on TCG Matchmaking as well. But pretty good, like for Zoro, right? Where our only real rough matchup is Silver's Rayleigh. And then we do have like Bonnie's a little bit negative, Kuzan's a little negative, and Nell's actually, I think, pretty tough because it's really difficult for us to be able to kind of establish 3 attacks in a turn that are, good enough for us to be able to get around like a Nell's leader effect. So that's pretty tough for us. Silver's Rayleigh, I think, it's going to be in a pretty good spot for this format. I know a lot of people are nervous with Sakazuki coming back, and also with the potential of like Rob Lucci still being really viable. But so far, I don't think that's really been the case. It's been a really good aggressive deck. Our only kind of tough matchups are, again, Kuzan as well as Bonnie. So that helps us, and Nell. So it's pretty much the same matchups that we have for Zoro, but we swap out, like, I guess, a positive Nami matchup for a positive mirror matchup kind of thing. So I do expect Silvers to be pretty popular because of that, and will be pretty present. We do have Green Purple Luffy, which I still think is around. Having a bad Silvers Rayleigh matchup is a little bit tough for it, but we do have pretty good matchups across the board. Bonnie as well. I think this is one of the better matchups for it right now too. We do, again, still have a Blue Purple Luffy matchup that's negative. Shanks, if it's really relevant, it's going to be tough for us. And then also, I don't know how popular Sakazuki is going to be, but Teaches, I think, going to be present, but again, not impossible for this kind of layout. Shanks has been, around. I do think having a bad matchup into probably 2 of the more popular leaders with Zoro and Silver's Rayleigh can affect it, but I think he can overcome it. You can definitely see, look how abysmal this matchup is. 23%, right? People are like, why did Shanks leave the meta? Why is it not here anymore? It's literally this. It's literally because of how good this was. And this is like post-nerf 23.9% too, which is pretty tough. So we do have Luffy as well. We do have kind of a tough matchup into the top 3 leaders right now, mostly because, again, they're really aggressive. And we don't have as many tools to help us there. But I also think that part of this is like Luffy learning what this meta kind of looks like. And I do expect that some of these matchups can get a little bit better. We do have Kuzan, which I think if it's going to be relevant, it's mostly because it does have positive win rates into Zoro and Silver's Rayleigh. the rest of it is pretty abysmal across the board, right? Shanks is negative. Like you can see like a lot of these win rates are pretty tough for the deck, but if you play specifically against Zoro and Silvers, you're in a good spot. Sakazuki, this is added to it, but it had a 41% win rate here. So I don't know if this deck's going to be super viable in this meta right now. This was something that, oh, it's, the band leader. It has a lot of chances to do well, but having a 23% win rate against Zoro is so tough for this, where Zoro is kind of predicted to be the most popular matchup for the game right now. Also having like an abysmal win rate against Blue Purple Luffy. What the only reason that this deck would be good is if Bonnie's just out and away the best deck in this format right now, which is going to be really present, but I don't think it's going to be present enough to really overcome these bad matchups. But if there's a build that kind of someone makes to, surpass this, that could make it really good. We do have Teach, which is only kind of held at bay by some aggressive matchups. So the Silver Israeli and the Green Purple Luffy. The rest of it is pretty positive for you. Kalgara is kind of again, like one of the variety ads, I think, for this week. So it does have a tough matchup into Zoro and Silver Israeli, which again will hurt it, I think, in the long run, but you do have a lot of additional matchups that are good. And then Anel, strictly speaking, right? Like if Kuzan's relevant because it's, good against Silvers and Zoro, and now is 110% so, right? Like 62% and 75% against those matchups, and then red across the board afterwards, right? I'm like, what, Silver Israeli and Zoro, probably 20 to 30% of a room. So hey, if you see only those two, you're going to have a really good time. And there are some like pretty close matchups, right? Green Purple Luffy, I think you can still do well against. There's also like I guess Sakazuki if it's around. But then after that, yeah, win rates tank, so it's going to be tough to be solidified for. And then Sanji, again, with Zoro being so present, Silver Israeli being present, and Green Purple Luffy, like these top four are so tough for this deck, but then has some chance otherwise, but we'll kind of see from there. And then kind of last, Nami. It has a tougher match from the Zoro just because it can swing multiple times over a 7k leader pretty easily. And then Bonnie also just has like some control aspects, but having a good matchup into Green, Purple, and Silvers is good. Having good matchup into Shanks could be good. Blue Purple Luffy's also in our favor now that they don't have as much, like since they don't have a life heal, that makes a big difference for the deck. And then also even a positive win rate against Marshall D. Teach. So in general, I think there's a lot of matchups that are going to be pretty polarizing for a lot of these leaders. It makes sense why Silvers and Zoro is pretty popular because they don't really have any like kryptonite matchups outside of Anel, and then Anel just kind of gets gatekeeped by literally everything else in the format. So there it is there. All right, we're going to go over the leaders for this real quick. These deck lists are the highest win rate within these leaders that had, I think, over 50 games or so. So these aren't not just like decks that like, oh, we played once, it got a 100% win rate, and we logged off. No, these have a function of win rate, but also the amount of playing as well. So we're going to start off with Zoro, and I had to double check with this. This was also the list that was for last week. This was like the preview week for it. And this is just this kind of Fishman Island version of the deck where we're playing the Vanderdecken. Being able to use this to get removal of anything rested is super big for this deck. You just have to trash something with Fishman type or Noah Arc. Can be any card too. So if you want to play the Elephant Gatling, you can do that as well. But being able to get that removal. So we have the Hatch on, which lets us have like this 2K as well. This is a Supernova, not an East Blue, so we can't play it for my life, but we have that. We also have the Karamatsu. I'm still surprised they're not playing any copies of Hody Jones, just because worst case, it's another Fishman type, so you can discard off that, but I digress from there. And then we do have like the Dead Man's Game, the Paradise Waterfall, our Restand event, and the Zero. So honestly, like I don't want to be like reductive either. Deck doesn't need really much outside of like playing your 4 of each searcher, playing 4 copies of Tashigi and some Kuinas and some Draco Mihawks and Cavendish. Outside of that, like you can be pretty flexible with what you're running in a lot of these decks too. So I think Zoro's in a really good spot, and it's going to continue to just be, if not the best deck in the meta, I think it's going to be one of the most popular decks in the meta, and really gatekeep a lot of leaders, including I think there's a lot of 4-life leaders that can exist because this deck exists, as well as Silver's Rayleigh exists for this one. So Silver's I think is mostly like a 45, 46 card complete deck for most people. There are some kind of ratio changes that people make to try to make it a little bit more consistent or change some stuff. For this deck in particular, that we have 2 kind of things that I've noticed that not everyone's playing. One is the 3-drop Monkey D. Luffy. I think you kind of have to play 2 copies of this card, and mostly because it just helps you get a lot of more consistency with your searchers. The fact that it's a Monkey D. Luffy, the fact that you can play it off your 4-drop Monkey D. Luffy, I think this card is just really, really good right now. And you kind of, 2 would be the numbers I would run if I was playing this deck, just because of that kind of increased ferment. We do see 1 copy of Vista, so it's a really interesting add for the deck. It does help you like get like a removal from a mole pistol, and also like just get things like for that, like you also get rid of some tiny blockers, even though we do get around blockers with the To Never Doubt, so that is there. And then lastly, we do have the in 2 years searcher event. So this is from set 1, but lets you look top 5 for a Straw Hat Crew type character from your deck. So we only, so that includes Nami, that includes Boa, that includes Sanji, and our Luffy. So pretty much most of our deck, we're going to be able to find this. There's a lot of times where I think people are like, oh, well, I really like, my win percentage depends on how many of this card I can play out. And not only like do we have issues where sometimes we find this card, but we don't have something like a Sanji or a, in this deck, a Monkey D. Luffy to play with it. And because of that, we just kind of run out of steam. So I think playing with the event makes sense. It's something that I know a lot of people are trying out, and it works for the deck, right? It's an event that's searchable. It's a Straw Hat Crew card. Like you can use Nami to find this and then this to find Luffy. Like there's a lot of routes. So I do think having like a couple copies of that will help the deck in the long run too. So here's the deck for Silver's Rayleigh, and then next up we've got Bonnie. Bonnie, I think, has been getting a lot more popular in the first couple weeks. If I was to say right now what I think the best deck in the format is, I think Bonnie is likely it, with Zoro taking a close second. It's going to be difficult too with kind of waiting with how many people are taking the deck in general, but I think Bonnie is definitely like the best it's ever been within a meta, right? The fact that like blue purple Luffy isn't around as much, Nami's gone, which is a bad matchup for the deck unless you just happen to see every Hody Jones that you get in your deck, which that's not searchable. The new Secret Rare has been, I think, a really good add for the deck. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to be able to get this effect off because having 8 or more rested cards is a lot, but if you're able to do it, just having a draw 2 trash 1 just fixes this deck so much. There's just so many bricks that you feel forced to run. In this build, we're only playing 16 though, so we're playing the Hody, the Mihawk, the 1 Captain Kid, which again, I think Mihawk is just more flexible than 8-drop Kid. Obviously, this is like the more wall of a card, but if you can't set this up, then Mihawk is a little bit better. 3 Shanks, 3 Dofis, and 1 of the events. So the rest of our cards having counter and having flexibility is really good. I think Carrot is really good in this meta, right, too. So that because it just happens to hit like Tashigi from Zoro, as well as just any card from Silver's Rayleigh, so that helps out a lot as well. And not much more to say. I think this deck's been pretty good generically. And then like I think the only other decision is that we're not playing any Rosinante. We're playing the 2-drop beige blocker instead. That just will help us get some more cycle if we really need it. And I think Kyoshiro is just about as good for a blocker, especially if we're only playing 1 copy of 8-drop Kid. We don't really need Rosie as much because everything else pretty much has protection that's rested, so there it is. All right, next up, we got Blue Purple Luffy, and I think a lot of people thought this deck would be dead in the water without Katakuri and Big Bomb. Generally speaking, I was thinking like, I was probably in that boat for a good amount, but I did know that we still have the main part of the deck, right? The fact that Sanji's still in this deck in general means that it is viable, I think, in the minimum, because we do have like our broken combo of being able to play Sanji consistently for a lot of ways. So to kind of replace that, a lot of people have been playing Mihawk for the removal. 8-drop Luffy, which I think this is a great card for the deck. And then also 7-drop Kyros is a newer one that I've been seeing as well. The fact that it is just a 7-drop 9K already is great value. And if you are going to, like, if you're an 8 right now, this is just like a really great like 8 Dawn play, right? You play this for 7, have 1 Dawn open for like a gear 2 or something, and then getting rid of a 5 or less is so many cards. Even if it puts it back to your opponent's hand, there's so many cards that you get to hit with this. And the fact that, it's a 9K, which means that a lot of decks will have an issue getting rid of it back at you. So because of that, I think it's a really good card for this deck right now. And it's been cool to see that kind of pop up. I also know that like there's the 9-cost Secret Luffy that can be like a really good rush card as well. 10K with rush that draws us a card. The Dawn -1 can be a little bit tricky to balance with Gum Gum Giant, but I definitely need to try out more of this Kyros. And I think this is a really good card for helping us get to that spot and really just like reset the board a little bit. Like, right, like Charlotte Linlin was also really good because it got rid of a 6 or less. So this being able to get rid of a 5 or less does hit, I think, a lot of relevant cards in this meta right now, which means that you do get to kind of get that reset, which is really good. So here's the build here. Next, we've got green purple Luffy. We kind of know what this deck looks like. It's been around for a long time. Last week I think we had like a little bit more of an interesting build. We also had like 9-drop Secret Zoro, which is searchable in this deck, and you can use it with your leader effect, so that's really nice. But for this build in particular, we do have I'd say this is more standard. 2 copies of Dead Man's Game is great. The fact that we have an in-arc type Hody has been really strong for the deck, and then just generally what we've been seeing. So I don't have much to say about green purple Luffy, but here it is. Shanks has been one of the decks that I know a lot of people have been trying again in this format, and it's so peculiar for me. We got this whole star deck for it, and just none of the cards seem like super duper viable, right? I've been seeing some people try like the Shanks that gives you the plus 2k. People have thought about Uta, but the card's not searchable because it's not a red hair pirates, right? So it's just like really weird, right? The fact that it's like one rare just kind of is more usable than the entirety of an entire star deck they made for the deck is bonkers to me. So, but this has been really good. The fact that it is a blocker, the fact that you get a lot of value, the fact that it's a searchable blocker, the fact that like you can get things in a range for like your removal. I think that helps this deck a lot and helps you in like the mid game, but also like late game, you don't mind playing this card because it converts any card in your hand into a 2k. The fact that also it's minus 2k for the turn means that you also get the like against Zoro or something that attacks more than once per turn, you do get that kind of additional minus. So other than that, we do just kind of run almost max removal with 4 copies of Ben Beckman, 2 copies of the Edward Newgate, and then 4 copies of Silver Israeli, and then our top end of 2 of each of the Shanks of the 10k pop one, and then also the Rush Shanks from there. So in general, I think this deck is good right now. I know a lot of people are on it. I'd say this is like a basic build for it. I think this is pretty standard. I know people have been testing out some new techs with it, and I'm going to be interested to see how this deck does and if it evolves anytime in the next couple weeks, but there it is. Next, we've got Kuzan, and Kuzan's in a really weird spot. I think this is a deck that is really consistent at what it does and has like a really straightforward game plan. And the issue with this deck is that it doesn't really have a the ceiling for this deck isn't super high, right? I think it's like I'm known for this deck. I'm known for this play style. I get to play pudding, so I get to be really obnoxious. I get to find 8-drop Garp, I think, really consistently, play a body off of it, and then if my opponent has a way to, either rush me down more or they have an answer to my board, I just kind of lose out of momentum a lot of the way. So I do think that there are some really great abilities from this deck. I do think after I wasn't a really big fan of this card at first, but I do think that it's probably like good at 2 copies. The fact that you get to play it off your Garp effect, but also the fact that it's an 8-drop blocker. It is a little clunky at times. I wouldn't run any more than 2 copies, but I think that 2 copies are probably worth the addition for it. We also have the Hina. There are 2Ks, right? We're playing Borsalino. I also do kind of like having the 2-drop blocker for this deck too, just because it is a smaller blocker. But if we are playing the Aramaki, it's not needed. Red Rocket 2 copies makes sense. Gravity Blade at 2 copies, especially since it is searchable. I have had times where I play Sengoku, use it, I'm at 10 Dawn, search out the Gravity Blade, and then still have enough Dawn to play it. So that's been good. And then just kind of the rest of the deck from here. So not much more to say. I do think Kuzan's going to get some occasional tops in this meta. I don't think it's going to be the best deck in this format right now, but if it's a deck that you really want to commit to and you get like those consistent plays, I think you will be rewarded for it. So there it is. All right, next I've got Teach. I've got like literally nothing to say about this deck. It's been pretty much the same for a long time. There have been some decisions on what ratios you run and what tech ads you run. Looks like we're playing a couple copies of like Finger Pistol, just because this is really good, I think, against specifically green Zoro, as well as the red Silver Israeli. There's just so many cards that are 5 or less. That's really great for you. We do have 3 copies of Tempest Kick as well, being able to get that additional reduction, and then just kind of the rest of the deck. So I don't have much more to say about it. You guys know what Teach looks like, and here's a deck here. Next up, we got Nami, and I think this is a deck that's going to be changing a lot in the next couple weeks. We get a good amount of cards that came out of the set, right? The addition of Kuma has been a really good heal card for the deck. That lets you just get that plus 1 in your life, and your opponent has a hard time removing it. Baby 5 is a great 2k that lets us draw 2 more, which is really helpful. We also do have the Nari Kabora arrow, lets you really do well against Zoro, right? The fact that this can get out of 2 attacks, especially if you're a 7k leader, is really, really handy. And then also the Kikunojo, being able to use this to be be like this. So I want to really make like a Wano build for this. I'm going to be doing some testing with it, but like this deck just has a lot of great cards. Blue Yellow I think has a really cool card pool. Being able to also run like Red Rock and Raging Tiger. The fact that this card you can run a lot of bricks and not be punished for it, because any of the bricks in your hand turn into a plus 2k. The amount of card draw this deck has is insane. And I'm really looking forward to testing this out and seeing what this really looks like and kind of like the long term for it. So not much more to say, but here is the build from Nami. And again, we're going to get Star Deck 22 next week. So I don't know if it's going to be part of the power rankings because it won't be technically out yet, but I'll definitely be doing some testing with the deck and just seeing what's kind of viable for it as well. So here's a build here for Nami. And then to wrap it up, we've got Kalgara. So this is, again, the variety add. I've really liked this deck in the past, though. I think just adding the like more consistency tools from this set have really helped it out a lot. So one of them is Kalgara itself. It's the 5-drop 6k. The name for it's really important because it does help you with the Mont Blanc. Being able to use this card to draw one anytime a card is removed from you or your opponent's life area. So this just really consistently gets it. Like it's difficult to not draw for this card every turn. So you can only use this, like you can't stack the abilities though, because you cannot draw cards with your own effects during this turn afterwards. So if you have 2 of them out, it's not going to help you there, but I do think it's really helpful. Kuma, as mentioned, is really good for this deck. We are also getting some vanilla 2Ks for this one. So I've seen people play Seto before, but it looks like we're kind of more impartial for the Wiper, this 6-drop 7k, so still pretty good there. We also do have the vanilla Kalgara, but we don't need to play 4 copies of this because we are playing this one as well. There is also like the Searcher event that came out of this set. I don't see many people running it. I think it's like a little bit slow for what people are doing, just because it is like really dependent on we'd rather play like a holy or a body on board that turn instead of like wasting it just to draw 2 cards, since we do get a lot more card draw because of the 5/6 Kalgara as well. So not much more to say here. I think Kalgara, I think a lot of people are going to play this. I wouldn't be surprised if this did get like a top sometime in this meta, and here is the build there. But that's going to be it for us. Again, if you guys want any of these deck lists, you can find them on Eggman Events, linked in the description. I appreciate TCG Matchmaking for publicizing these decks every week, and really looking forward to seeing what changes between this week and next week, especially since we do have some big events this weekend too. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.